Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you as always for tuning back in. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Layla, the Lenormand reader, and I am one of the few people who focuses almost exclusively on the amazing Lenormand practice. In today's video, I want to do more exercises in the area of card correspondences. As you might know, card correspondences are what I call the idea of applying a card meaning to different contexts. So for example, the fish, which is one of my favorite examples to use for this, is the main card of money. But how do we make sense of the fish when it comes to relationships or when it comes to work? Or how about other areas like health? So the idea is that cards can be applied to different contexts. They can be interpreted in different ways to answer different questions. Now, something that helps us do this is what I call life maps or life themes. You see, in our everyday life, we ask all sorts of different questions. We go through all sorts of different things. We have relationships, we have money, we have work, we have administration and other issues that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And so these different areas guide the different questions that we ask about. And this means that we have to be able to interpret the cards to answer these questions. And so these maps, these life maps, present different themes that help us interpret the cards in different areas. Now, one of my favorite life maps is the Feng Shui Bagua. The Feng Shui Bagua is a map that is used on spaces. It comes from the Asian Chinese geomantic practice called Feng Shui. I am certified in Feng Shui, and it is one of my favorite things to deal in, as well as cards and other topics that I am fascinated about. So I went ahead and created a layout that I call the life overview layout that uses the Feng Shui Bagua to read about the different areas of our life. And what is so practical about this layout is that we get to practice our card correspondences across these different areas. Now, the way the layout is done, and by the way, this is a layout that I offer in my private reading menu, so you can go over there and check it out, is we lay out 3 cards per area of the Bagua. And as you can see, the Bagua has 9 areas. It has career, it has health, knowledge and wisdom, helpful people, family and community, creativity and children, money and prosperity, fame and recognition, and relationships. So the way these houses of the Bagua are laid out in a Bagua can depend in different schools of Feng Shui, but the one that you see here comes from what is called the Black Hat sect Feng Shui, which tends to be a Western implementation of the classical compass Feng Shui Bagua. So it really doesn't matter for our purposes in Lenormand how we place these different houses of the Bagua. What matters is that we make a decision, and then the cards that come on top of each of the houses are interpreted for that house. So what we're doing in this video is, as such an example, we're going to lay out a life overview Bagua spread, and we're going to interpret the cards for the different themes. And this way, you have an idea of how we can interpret not just 1, but 3 cards across different life areas or theme. So let's go right ahead. I've got my deck today, my own deck, the Silhouettes deck, and lay out a Bagua the way I do it, and let us interpret whatever cards come up here. So we're just going to imagine that we're reading for ourselves, and we're going to do 3 cards per location. Okay, here we are with our beautiful life map, the Bagua. We have 3 cards per area. Now, one thing we want to note is that we don't weave the cards in lines like we would in a regular portrait. Instead, this is more like an astro clock, where we read the 3 card groups individually. Sometimes we find interesting connections between different areas, but that is different from weaving the cards in a line like we would in a portrait or in a tableau. So the different positions here correspond to different areas of the life map of the Bagua. This is the career location. This is the health location. This is the future, the fame and fortune area. This is money and prosperity, relationships, and this one is family and community. This one is children and creativity. This one is knowledge and wisdom and helpful people and support. And the way I deal out the cards is just from the top left to the bottom, and then the next column, and then the third one. And what I do is I deal one card per area until I've covered all of the locations, and I go back and I deal out the second. And I'm just mentioning this because I want to say that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in what order you deal them out. What matters is that your deck is shuffled and that there is no bias from a previous reading. Also, the way I've positioned the career, the health, and all of the different areas is in alignment with the Black Hat sect Bagua, but you might want to just lay them out in a row or in a different order. That too doesn't matter. What matters is that you know which cards belong to which life area, and you just stick with that. So let's go right ahead and interpret the different positions here, the different areas with the 3 cards that figure in each one. And I'm going to follow the Black Hat sect order. Starting with career. So this is where we start with the Black Hat sect. We start with the career position, which is right here in the center bottom. So we have the scythe, key, and house. Now we're talking about career. We're not talking about home and family. So what could figure here? What would be one way we can interpret these cards in the context of career? Well, the key is a beautiful success card, and the scythe is a card of separations. The key and house can suggest access into a certain place. Now, in a general sense, it's very clear that this triplet is telling us that there is an opportunity. We have a job opportunity, we have a promotion opportunity. It can be any number of these depending on the specific context of the person you're reading for. But really, because of the scythe here, I feel there can be a pretty big change. This can mean a job change. This can mean moving departments because we have the house. Possibly you're gaining access into some group of people. Maybe you become part of a team or an interesting project. All of these can apply, but the idea is really to bring these cards into the context of work. So that would be some ways we can interpret these cards for this life area. The next house that we read in the Feng Shui Bagua, if we were going to follow the Black Hat sect order, is the relationships. That's because it's actually associated with the number 2. And so obviously 2 is a great number for relationships. What do we have here? We have the book, flowers, and star. Now, obviously, this is a very beautiful message. We have the flowers and the star. They are wish fulfillment cards. We also have the book. Now, the book is a card of mystery, but with the flowers and stars, it sounds like there's going to be a really positive revelation. Now, what can that mean in the context of relationships? Well, someone can announce that they're interested in you, assuming you're single, and there's a relationship in development. Or perhaps there is a beautiful development and deepening of an existing relationship. Any way we look at these cards, they bring good news and wish fulfillment. So check in with your client, with the person you're reading for. If they're already in a relationship, there can be some beautiful developments forward. If they're single, they could meet someone. And in all cases, there is a wonderful surprise in their relationship. Now, it's worth noting that the relationship area in the Black Hat sect Bagua doesn't have to be about just one person. It can represent one-on-one relationships in other areas of life. The idea is that it's not so much about groups and communities. There's another house for that. It is this one here, but that it's more on the one-to-one relationships. So clearly, when it comes to personal relationships in this person's life, there is wonderful news, wonderful surprises, and wish fulfillment. Okay, moving on to the next area, and that is the creativity and children's area, and it figures here, and it is associated with number 3. So when it comes to children and creativity, obviously you have to check in with the person you're reading for. If they have children, this might be more relevant. If they don't, it might not be. And so you would focus more on creativity. And of course, both areas can figure depending on the specifics of the person you're reading for. Now here we have the anchor, the mountain, and clover. I'm not really seeing that this is saying anything about children's behavior or even people's behavior if they're older kids, we have this idea of a foothold in a different location, and we have the clover. This is another very bright card. So obviously there's a lot of good things happening here. How could we read the cards in the context of creativity? Well, it's possible that there is an opportunity to express creativity. Obviously with the clover, this is a card of wish fulfillment, and it's also an open card. The mountain can, with the anchor, can suggest a place where we have an opportunity to express our creativity. Maybe we are going public with some work. The mountain is also a card to represent online activity, online environments, and here with the anchor, there can be the suggestion of connecting with some people, whether online or offline, and the clover brings opportunity. So that is definitely one way we can make sense of these cards in the context of creativity. That would be different if we were reading the cards for travel. If we were reading the cards for travel, then they might actually suggest travel. So again, the context is very important when it comes to interpreting the cards. Now, if we were to read these cards for children, supposing our person has children here, maybe their kids are traveling somewhere, or maybe there's an opportunity for them to visit some places, or maybe do things online. This too can apply in the context of children, but the idea is really to tweak the cards so that they make sense for this area. The next area that we focus on in the Black Hat sect is the community and family house, which is in this side here. It is the one in the center left. So this house focuses on the broader environment. Unlike the one-on-one relationships, like we said, this community house has to do with your social network, and it includes your family, your bigger environment. So what is going on here? Well, very active cards. We have the Rider, Stork, and Road, and each of these cards is a travel card, a movement card. So obviously all three together really suggest a lot of activity. Well, in the context of community and your social life in a broader sense, this clearly has to do with going places, visiting with people, socializing, networking, reaching out, and going to see people or receiving people. Obviously, these cards very much encourage the social aspect and encourage you to go out and be with people. There can also be a suggestion to explore different people and places because of the road being so open-ended and the Stork and Rider having a lot of initiative. So these are cards that encourage you to connect with others in your community, in your family, get active, get busy, do things together. It would have been a completely different situation if we had, for example, the coffin or negative cards or cards of solitude like the tower and tree. If we had such cards in this location, we would have suggested instead that it's best maybe to take time out, to stay a little bit away from busy scenes, and maybe to minimize the social environment for a while. So that is how we would focus these cards in this context. The next area that we read in a Black Hat sect Bagua are the central cards, and these correspond to health. So this is about physical health classically in the Black Hat sect, as well as well-being in general. And so this is the context within which we would read these cards. Now notice we have relationship cards in this house here. Obviously, this is not about one-on-one relationships like in this house. This is focusing on health. So how do we read these cards in the context of health? And notice that we have the beautiful sun, which is very, very wonderful for health. So obviously, there aren't issues here. There aren't worries. It is a wonderful message for all-around healing, happiness, and success. Now, with the ring and dog, obviously this is quite an important relationship. It looks pretty committed. I feel this can go in a few ways in the context of health. For one, it's possible that our readee is able to find someone that they can rely on for their health, and this person is someone very supportive, proves to be smart and really helpful thanks to the sun. This could be someone like finding a right doctor, finding the right partner who somehow joins you in your health journey. It could also be any other connection that supports you in your health and your well-being. So that may well be what we are seeing here through these cards. In another sense, it's possible that you want to do some health activities with friends or people. You could also be sharing your well-being with others, or maybe you contribute to others' well-being. This too can be suggested by these cards. So again, the idea is really to focus the cards for the context that we're reading, and in this case, it was health. Next area in the Black Hat sect is this one here in the bottom right. And this area is focused on helpful people and support. Now, this is specific to the Feng Shui practice, but they distinguish these different people in our life. And to be fair, people are a huge part of our life. So it does make sense to divide the different kinds of people. So the way helpful people come through, what that really means is these people who offer us service, whom we go to for help. It could be like our real estate agent, our tax accountant, or other people that bring us this kind of support. And there is also in the Feng Shui context an association of this house with guidance, like divine guidance, like luck and support from the unseen. This is part of the ancient Chinese worldview and how they associate different energies to different phenomena in the world. You can make of it what resonates with you and also associate this house with, divine help or other sources of support in your life, not necessarily in association with people like we were saying, those folks who help us in our life. So what do we have here? We have the heart, mouse, and garden. Very interesting cards. This is the first challenging card we come through in the layout. And the mouse is not particularly challenging, but it does come next to the heart. So this can be a bit of a disappointment. We also have the garden here, which points to a meeting or people. It is also a social card. And what I feel comes through these three cards in the context of the helpful people is that help might not come through. So the mouse here brings challenges. It can also suggest that we can't really rely on someone because we don't really trust them. And with the garden, it might be in a certain context, like, where we go to do these things. I'm thinking any number of areas here. It could be our bank, our accountant, the clinic, the whatever, really. There's so many such places that we are involved with. But the idea is that something falls through, something is not really helpful, and it can also be a cautionary note against being trusting of certain people for help. And with the heart, I feel there is a disappointment here. So it's possible that someone or some environment that we were relying on for something might not come through. So this would be a bit of a challenging message in this reading. The next area in a Black Hat sect, Bagua, is knowledge and wisdom. And this would be this house here in the bottom left. The idea of knowledge and wisdom is our sources of information, our education, but also a more spiritual aspect that we associate with these things. So inner knowledge and wisdom and meditation and going within. All of these elements would be part of the house of wisdom and knowledge. Now, these are some really interesting cards to see in this area. We have the fox, the tower, and the snake. And these are two of the trickiest cards of the deck, really suggesting a sense of deception. The tower, on the other hand, is a card of wisdom and guidance, interestingly enough. And when I see these three cards together, I feel there can be some deep lessons that need to be learned. And I feel that the veil would be removed. So the veil of deception would be removed. I'm thinking a little bit of the tarot tower, where there is that disillusionment that comes through. Now, we're not seeing this aggressive action of the tarot tower in here, but we are seeing this idea of having to see through the deception or the things that are unclear. And this tower here, being a card of elevation, seems to invite us to look beyond the surface. Because these two cards are about deception, it's important to break through the deceptions and to see through that. And this can apply to other people, perhaps, or to ourselves, where we're not really being honest with ourselves. So these are strong cards for a house like the house of wisdom and knowledge, where we need to really be honest and get past anything that is superficial, the deception, and that is unclear. This is quite a powerful triplet. And notice that if we had these cards in another context, like for example, a relationship context, it would suggest something completely different. It would suggest a disappointment in a relationship, possibly cheating and things like that. Now, I'm not dismissing the idea that we need to be wise about such possibilities when these three cards figure in this area, but the primary focus would be on getting past the deception and seeing with wisdom and seeing with honesty, because this is what this area is mainly about. Now, what's also interesting is that the tower can sometimes be associated with education, because it is also associated with expertise and people who have achieved the top, people who are like up there in terms of their experience. And with the fox and snake, it's an interesting message. I feel that it could be telling us, they could be telling us that not everyone who is, who comes across as having expertise is really an expert. Like, we have to be willing to see through the possible deceptions and willing to see beyond that as well. So I feel these are really powerful cards in the house of wisdom and knowledge. The next area that we read is money and prosperity, and it is this house here located in the top left. So this is the house that is focused on practical things. It would be represented by the fish in Lenormand's cards. We have the whip in here. This can be challenging. The tree and bear would have been a positive combination, but we do have the whip that shows up, so this can really bring up some challenges. This can possibly rock the boat of our security. It can cause some expenses. We might be a little bit overstretched. And what's also interesting is that the bear is often associated with wealth and prosperity. A lot of Lenormand authors read it as money and income. So when it shows up in this house, it could, tend to that as well. The tree and bear, like I said, would have been bright, suggesting growth and security, but the whip can really shake this up. And so we could face some financial challenges. We might need to deal with this situation in an aggressive way, and we might need to avoid overspending and, rein things in a little bit. So this is a challenging aspect that comes through when it comes to finances. Again, suppose we had this in another area. We would have read the cards differently. Suppose we had these in the health area. Well, obviously here there would be some concerns where we need to take care, we need to not overstretch ourselves, we need to be aware of possible injuries and things like that. It can also represent a health scare. So the cards in a different house would take on a different meaning. And this is very much the point of what it means to read cards across different contexts, which is what I call correspondences. Now, the last house that we read in the Bagua is number 9. It is the one here at the top in the middle, and this is the house of fame and fortune. Now, what that means in the classical Feng Shui practice is the idea of a recognition, and also it tends to be associated with the goals or the end goal, because it is the opposite house to the career. So the way the Bagua works is that it has an entry point, which is through this spot, and the energy travels around the houses. And the reason this is important is because actually the Feng Shui Bagua is a map for spaces. So it is overlaid on top of spaces, and a space is arranged to support the houses so that people who live in the space attract the beneficial energies of these houses. So you notice that the fame and fortune house is at the opposite end of the career house. And so it tends to be associated with the outcomes of this path, this career path. So here we have some challenging cards, and we have a person card, and we have the coffin in clouds. This clearly points to an ending in a relationship, and so it can mean that a person lets go of a certain relationship. I am not seeing immediate associations between the energies in the relationship house and the cards that we're seeing in here. So this can be a different kind of person, but I do see an association that is with the helpful person, helpful people house, where we saw a challenging aspect. So perhaps these two are somehow connected. And you know, these connections between the houses, they are unique to every reading. They are interesting to look into, but they don't necessarily have to be connected. But I am seeing an interesting connection because both houses have challenging cards and both houses have relationship cards. So perhaps they are connected in this way. Unlike these two houses, which seem to have some pretty good cards. And like we said, this is the one-on-one relationships, and this is the social aspect. So it sounds like in the future, or the next steps out of this Bagua layout is an ending in a relationship here. And I can't say that this is necessarily an easy ending because of the clouds. But somehow it seems to be important. It seems to be a part of what is meant to be because we see it in this area. And this is a pretty important area in terms of, you know, what happens next. So this is how we would do a Bagua life overview reading. And like I said, the reason I wanted to bring this up is because it is an excellent exercise in correspondences, going beyond one card and still not long, just 3 cards per area. And this really helps you interpret the cards for different areas of life. It is also a nice life map. And so you can think about what different cards mean in different contexts. And if you do a few of those, you can really practice interpreting the cards across different areas. And then you can go beyond the Bagua into other life maps, such as the one of the Zodiac life map, which we covered in the Astro Clock workshop, by the way. And I'll link this in case it is helpful to you too. You can expand on these life maps. You can apply them to all sorts of different things, having practiced this correspondence exercise with the cards in this layout. So let me know your thoughts about this. I really look forward to your feedback as always. Let me know if you're going to try your hand at doing a life mapping exercise, interpreting the cards for different areas. I would certainly look forward to your feedback on this. And have a look at all of the resources that I have linked in the box for you. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it with other aspiring Lenormand readers so we can grow this amazing community. And until next time, as always, thank you for watching and take very good care of yourself.